Dr. Marcus Webb served as human medical liaison to the Valtheran Imperial Court, a position that mostly involved coordinating between human and Valtheran medical personnel, translating between different biological frameworks, and occasionally providing consultation on cross-species medical issues. He'd been in this role for 6 months, long enough to understand that the Valtheran Empire took protocol seriously, that Empress Nethara was treated with reverence, making direct interaction extremely rare, and that medical issues involving royalty were handled with layers of discretion, making clear information difficult to obtain. When Marcus received an urgent summons to the Empress's private chambers, delivered by guards whose expressions suggested they were simultaneously concerned and deeply uncomfortable, his first assumption was diplomatic medical emergency, possibly involving toxins or biological warfare. He was escorted through the palace with unusual speed, bypassing normal security protocols in ways suggesting whatever was happening was being treated as crisis requiring immediate response. What he found when he reached the Empress's chambers was not what he expected. Empress Kyrith was an imposing figure even by Valtheran standards, over 8 feet tall, powerfully built, radiating the kind of physical presence her species associated with authority. She was also clearly in distress, though Marcus initially couldn't identify what was actually wrong. Her guards were maintaining careful distance while looking deeply embarrassed. Her personal attendants hovered anxiously without approaching, and the Empress herself was making visible effort to maintain composure while something was clearly bothering her intensely. "Dr. Webb," she said, her voice strained in ways that contradicted her usual commanding tone. "I require your assistance with a medical situation that Valtheran physicians have been unable to address. This is deeply embarrassing by my people's standards, but circumstances require I set aside propriety." Marcus approached cautiously, still trying to identify what was actually wrong. "Your Majesty, I'm here to help. Can you describe the symptoms?" What Kyrith explained, with visible mortification, was that she was experiencing a biological reaction unique to Valtheran physiology. Her species had sent glands that normally activated during specific emotional or social situations to communicate status and emotional state. The Empress's scent glands had malfunctioned and were producing pheromones at overwhelming levels she couldn't consciously control. The scent was so intense it was making everyone around her instinctively defer in ways that went beyond normal social hierarchy, essentially overwhelming their ability to function normally in her presence. Valtheran physicians couldn't get close enough to treat her without being affected by the pheromones, and usual medical interventions attempted remotely had failed to stop the reaction. Marcus tried to understand why he'd been called specifically, and Kyrith explained that humans appeared largely immune to Valtheran pheromone responses. Marcus could detect the scent intellectually, but it didn't trigger the same overwhelming deference that it caused in Valtheran. This made him one of the few beings who could approach the Empress and maintain normal cognitive function while her scent glands were malfunctioning. "I need you to manually apply pressure to the gland locations to stop the overproduction," Kyrith said, her mortification clear. "It's a simple physical intervention that would normally be handled by medical staff, but no Valtheran can get close enough without being overwhelmed. You're human, so you should be able to approach and perform the procedure without being affected." She was essentially asking Marcus to physically manipulate her scent glands, a procedure that in Valtheran culture was intensely personal, normally only performed by intimate partners or medical professionals in extremely private settings. Having a human perform this procedure, while medically necessary, was going to be deeply embarrassing by the standards of her culture's approach to physical intimacy and status. Marcus recognized that refusing would leave the Empress in a medical crisis that was also a profound social crisis. The pheromone overproduction was preventing anyone from functioning normally around her, creating a situation where she couldn't receive proper medical care because the very problem requiring treatment prevented treatment from being delivered. "I can do that, Your Majesty. Can you show me where the glands are located and explain the proper pressure technique?" What followed was an awkward but necessary medical procedure where Marcus, guided by Kyrith's embarrassed instructions and using anatomical diagrams that Valtheran medical staff provided remotely, applied careful pressure to scent gland locations on the Empress's neck and upper back. The procedure was intimate by Valtheran standards in ways that made the guards and attendants watching from careful distance clearly uncomfortable. But Marcus treated it with professional medical detachment, focusing on technical aspects rather than social implications. Apply steady pressure there? Yes, that location. Hold for 30 seconds, then release slowly. Kyrith's voice was carefully controlled despite her obvious discomfort with the situation. Marcus followed her instructions precisely, treating the procedure like any other medical intervention, requiring careful attention to technique and patient feedback. The scent glands beneath his fingers were warm and slightly raised, pulsing with the overproduction that was causing the crisis. As he applied pressure according to Kyrith's guidance, he could feel the glands gradually responding, the pulsing slowing as the intervention took effect. The procedure worked. The manual pressure on the scent glands interrupted the malfunction, and the overwhelming pheromone production gradually decreased to normal levels. As Kyrith's scent returned to manageable intensity, her guards and attendants visibly relaxed, able to think and function normally again without being overwhelmed by instinctive deference responses. The Empress herself was profoundly embarrassed but also clearly relieved. "Thank you, Dr. Webb. That was extremely awkward by my people's standards, but necessary. I appreciate your professional discretion in handling a situation that my own physicians couldn't address." Marcus maintained appropriate formal courtesy, while recognizing that Kyrith needed this treated as medical procedure, rather than as the intimately personal interaction that Valtheran culture would normally frame it as. "Your Majesty, I'm glad I could help. Should we discuss what caused the malfunction and how to prevent recurrence?" What emerged from subsequent discussion with Valtheran medical staff was that the scent gland malfunction was triggered by combination of stress and medication interaction that the Valtheran physicians hadn't anticipated. The Empress had been under enormous political pressure, and the stress was affecting her biological systems in ways that medication she was taking for an unrelated condition then amplified into the pheromone crisis. The solution involved adjusting her medication regimen and implementing stress management protocols. But it also required ongoing monitoring to ensure the glands didn't malfunction again, which meant Marcus became responsible for periodic check-ins with the Empress to ensure her scent glands were functioning normally. A responsibility that was medically straightforward, but socially awkward, because in Valtheran culture, the kind of physical access to the Empress's scent glands that these check-ins required would normally only be granted to intimate partners or family members. The fact that a human physician was performing this role created considerable gossip in the imperial court about the nature of Marcus's relationship with the Empress. Over the following months, Marcus's role as the Empress's physician for scent gland management created an unusual dynamic. He had access to the Empress that very few beings were granted, performed medical procedures considered intensely personal by Valtheran standards, and was privy to aspects of her biology and stress levels that she normally kept completely private. What developed from this awkward beginning was genuine friendship, built on recognition that Marcus treated her medical needs with professional competence rather than reverence or discomfort. Kyrith appreciated that Marcus didn't treat her scent gland issues as shameful or as indicators of weakness. He treated them as medical conditions requiring management, nothing more. And Marcus appreciated that Kyrith, once past her initial embarrassment, was remarkably straightforward about communicating her symptoms and cooperating with treatment. The initial crisis, where the Empress summoned Marcus in distress, became story that circulated through diplomatic circles. The time when the galaxy's most powerful ruler had a medical emergency that her own species' physicians couldn't handle because the symptoms prevented them from providing treatment. And a human doctor resolved it through simple manual intervention he could perform specifically, because human neurology doesn't respond to Valtheran pheromones. The story highlighted human adaptability and problem-solving in ways that reinforced humanity's value in contexts where their biological differences became unexpected advantages. Years later, when Marcus had become the Empress's primary physician and trusted advisor on medical matters, they occasionally referenced the scent gland incident with comfortable humor that genuine friendship allowed. Kyrith admitted, "I was mortified to have to ask a human to manually manipulate my scent glands because my own physicians couldn't approach me without being overwhelmed. But your ability to treat it as straightforward medical procedure rather than as the deeply intimate interaction my culture would frame it as made it bearable. Your steady hands and unflinching honesty about what needed to be done saved me from both medical danger and profound social humiliation." Marcus's response emphasized the broader point. You needed help with a medical crisis that your biology and your species' responses to that biology made impossible for Valtheran physicians to provide. The fact that humans aren't affected by Valtheran pheromones meant I could help when no one else could. Sometimes the most important medical interventions aren't sophisticated technology or advanced knowledge. They're just being able to approach the patient and perform simple procedures that work, which requires not being incapacitated by the very symptoms you're trying to treat. The giant alien queen's awkward request became foundation for partnership that proved even the mightiest rulers in the galaxy might one day depend on a human's steady hands and practical approach to problems that seemed insurmountable within their own cultural and biological